for this.
Great. Dr. Khurshid, thank you so much for this opportunity. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for taking the time today to sit down with me and chat about AI and how it's actually changing the world around us. As Dr. Khurshid Muhammad said, there are a lot of major impacts of AI. There's a lot of hypes in AI, and I'm here to kind of give you some insights about both to help you frame your opinion about AI. Eventually, everyone's going to have a very different imagination of what AI is to their job and to their surrounding. It's different from everyone else. I was fortunate to actually start fairly early in this during my tenure in Boston, where actually I joined the lab at MIT doing big data research. It was called the Lab of Computational Physiology. So we were actually looking at physiology from computational perspective. Spent some time there, and then decided to actually go and do my own master's in machine learning and AI, data science, basically to get my technical skills in addition to the domain knowledge. And I will share this little story with you walking at the campus at MIT back in 2013. And I came across this message, and I'll kind of also wrap this lecture talking about this kind of a perspective. And it was a startup for educational platform. It's still, I still have a T-shirt from them. It's called XQ. And they said 75% of the kids born today will have jobs that has not existed yet. And lo and behold, nowadays you see a lot of titles in these 12 years that really would not have expected them to be as abundant, lucrative, and actually in existence. So there's a lot for us to actually witness as a transition in this phase in our life. So AI is changing the world. It's augmenting growth. There's a lot of integration of multiple things in the past that used to be like separate islands that now AI is augmenting them and creating something very, very amazing out of it. Advancement in a lot of sciences, like vaccine discovery, medication discovery, cutting the cost, cutting the time of delivery, kind of design and everything. It's a huge. Once we get to the biological lecture, I'll tell you actual stories about the COVID vaccine and other molecules that were designed using AI. It's taken away a lot of jobs. It's putting a lot of jobs in line, and preparation and services. New lines of all these services are actually happening. National GDPs are increasing, not just because NVIDIA is now a $4 trillion company and so on. So it is actually creating a GDP for all the countries that are actually leading in it. Predictive analysis that can help actually forecast better, design plans better. Everything is being affected. Customer service. It's hard to now to imagine a major website without an AI chatbot that is answering many of these questions. So it's around your work. There's automation, robots, smart machine. There's research and development, robot development. Retail is really, really affected. You are seeing AI applications in your Amazon cart since 2012. This also bought this is nothing but AI suggestions for you. Same for books or for everything. So it's already around us. And this is a nice thing about major events. You really don't feel them until they're already there. And this is a very important part. Like jobs are not going to disappear like this. It's going to be a slow decline of something being replaced by something bigger. And you look back 10 years and say, wow, where did this go? Now all this is happening instead. And this is how things that are major happen. And it's not like, oh, there's a earthquake now and like a flood of this there and like a flood of casualty and so on. So the repercussions, however, might end up in a major shake to an economy, to stability of a country, and so and so. But it's not the technology effect. It's more of the repercussions that can be developed because of it being poorly used, for example. So we are entering a world that's very, very different, and it actually is changing. I changed this lecture this time, and I gave it 6 months ago. So within a 6 months period, there was additions that actually I had to mention that it's going to keep happening. It's going to keep happening. It's a race that is only getting faster. But let me tell you this story. So these are potato peelers, manual potato peelers. Uh, So someone came and really disrupted the industry by creating an electrical potato peeler. And it was a huge hit. They like the scaled and they now are able to process tons of potatoes quicker than they used to do, and so on and so. And this person in this company were very successful and very wealthy. And people said, huh, this is an amazing technology. Let's start capitalizing on it. Let's actually create money from it. So let's get a potato car, potato planes, and potato everything or a peeler everything. And this is how we actually sometimes use new technology in ways that really have no applications to the future and also very stupid ways of trying. So the message here, just because there's a potato in something does not make it a potato science. And this is because there's data in medicine, it does not automatically make it a data science field. So this is very important. And the best thing you actually have, and you want to always have, and that actually no model, not ChatGPT, nothing else, is your domain knowledge. And this is what differentiates you from the machine. And they're gonna have a lot of struggle for actually getting this wisdom. So this is a problem, like where I don't know how many of you watch this old show called the South Park, and there was like these little midgets, that are small things that go and actually steal underpants, and they have this amazing plan. We're gonna steal underpants and then do something and make a profit. So there's a lot of that that's being done and created for the sake of profit in their heads and with a very unclear promise that is not going to be delivered. And that's actually muddies the water for real technology that is there, that is very important and should be actually either adopted, pushed, or pushed away sometimes. So this is very important for us to actually separate the hype from the reality. And that's why this talk is more about what is now here, what's probably in the future in a realistic way, and what's useful and what's not so useful. So don't go just with the flow because only dead fishes actually go with the flow. This is very important. However, AI can be used in medicine. It's already there. Medical decision support. It's already part of what Epic does for a few things. Some of them are rudimentary and annoying, such as probably you all suffered from it. The CT head, CDS recommendations. Like, come on, this is the stupidest model. It's just because it's poorly tuned to what you're trying to do. However, it's there, it's going to be very functional. On the other hand, the complexity index that is now shown in some of the Epic iterations is very helpful. It actually can give you an objective number that estimates the complexity of a patient that helps you kind of see the trajectory. They're going better, they're going worse from a lot of data points that you cannot process in your head. Medical images, there are huge advancement that actually now they are superior than humans in finding early signs of diseases on images. Amazing inventions there. Treatment plans, believe it or not, is actually being very helped by AI, and it's going to be something that's going to be implemented on an automatic basis. That's still not there. Risk factors, we are having these huge models that looks at so many parameters at the same time and really identify stuff that we never thought are risk factors coming from our environment, from a lifestyle, from whatever, from diseases that have emerged. So this is a very important part. Early disease detection. Yes, actually, you know what? We've been estimating the number of flu, burden of flu disease just from Google searches from like almost 2009, 2010. They are able to say from people searching for these symptoms or these medications, how many are actually are doing that in October, in November, and December, and they say, okay, by simulating this, this is what we're going to expect in January. And it's very helpful. So this is all already in place. Drug discovery and development. There's going to be a lecture talking about that, and it's really amazing. Many, many more stuff. So what I'm trying to show you here is a computer-generated presentation of a six-dimension world in a 3D dimension picture. And this is a very important part to understand how these machines are working. So for us, typically, we see things in 3D. There's X, Y, and Z. Maybe there's a part of time that sometimes we give it as a dimension, sometimes it's not. But we cannot imagine more than three dimensions. But for an algorithm looking at 100 variables at the same time, what they are seeing is a point that is sitting in between 100 dimensions and has an approximation for each one of these dimensions, and how that's how it actually ends up giving you the final signal to say A, X, and ZW 11 are the ones that are relevant, and the rest are far from this point of data, because when I aggregated all these, this is what I saw. For us, it's really hard to even imagine. For a machine, it's just a mathematical equation. And this is the power of AI, power of like coming to big data. With nowadays, you see medical databases with 40,000 variables and 100 or 200,000 patients or lines. So this is something that the machine is much able to do that we're actually capitalizing on. This is kind of the core of what AI machine learning does in a sense. So in this lecture, I'm going to outline a couple of things. The frontiers of data science in medicine, I'm going to categorize as useful, usefulness, which is a kind of an Urban Dictionary word for something that might be useful if you find it in a sense, and useless, completely useless. And then the maturity of this, is it something that's kind of crawling, barely sitting, or actually walking? So these are different kind of milestones for babies and trying to make it relevant in that way, how mature the technology is, or how capable and ready for it to actually affect the real world. So, and then I'm going to talk a little bit about future of data science in medicine, just from a conceptual perspective, just to kind of give you some insight from someone who does this on an almost daily basis to what you should expect and how you can see through this fog. These are the ground rules, okay? So the first part of data science integration is the big data integration. Now you used to have like secluded islands of data that are one for accounting and the other for the lab and the third for so and so and the fourth is for the insurance and so and so. And now you can bring all these together, connect them, and have a much better, bigger data set that can show you much more than you actually would have seen in the future. This is something that is already happening and changing how we actually are practicing medicine. Uh, it is very useful, but it's also very challenged by a number of factors. This CAP concept, consistency, availability, and partition, is one of the biggest challenges in medicine, because a lot of our data are RDBMS formatted, meaning it's actually the SQL formatted. So it's tabular data of a sense where the availability and consistency is guaranteed, but it's not partition tolerant. And you know how partition tolerant, how partitioned your system is. Probably you guys are on Epic or something else where you have structured data for these patients, and you also have PDFs that have the same type of data but in a different format. And then you have to go to a third pack system to review images, and then the fourth EKG reviewing system in the ER might actually have a different platform or a different dashboard that they actually use. So there's a lot of partition. It's not very tolerant, and we're still working on getting a solution that is all-encompassing in medicine. But the partition will prevail until now, because these solutions are there to protect the industry that they try to do. The partitions help them stay relevant in market. Eventually, it's a matter of time until big platforms actually absorb them. But it's very challenging because now you have a market force against you not to integrate everything on a like EHR level data, and also EHRs talking to each other. Like the hospital benefits from the partition. Like, I don't want to give my data to this hospital. I want to have the patients come to my facilities, is because now I own their data, so I own them. So this is another market force that is actually working against us to kind of prevent us from being partition proof. Data in healthcare is of different levels. What they call structured data, stuff that you know what it means, and it's actually sitting in a tabular format that is really helpful. Like your vital signs, your systolic blood pressure is 110 in this measure, and it's 95 in this measure. These are structured data. Like you can comprehend, you can process, and you know exactly what they mean. Past medical history, diagnosis, medications, so and so. There are the semi-structured data, all these, your images, maybe the templated note that actually have different sections in it. So you know this section actually contains an exam. I don't know what CTAB means. If you are someone in medicine in the US, this is clear to auscultation bilaterally. If you don't actually have the contextual knowledge, you have no idea, but it's there. You know where to look in this data schema to find what you're trying to get out of it. Same for EKG reports. There are other forms that are unstructured completely, or you have a free text notes. Radiology reports up until now, they are moving to a semi-structured, but this is part of it. Static images, be that a PDF that is scanned, a CT MRI or something, an echo is still a very unstructured data to the EHRs. So this is a frontier where you're actually going to have to, first of all, structuralize this data and then integrate it to become something that affects medical practice in the future. So what you have current now is like these node generation, Nebula, Nuance that is now kind of acquired by Microsoft. These are solutions that are already there where hospitals actually are buying these technologies where there's an ambient listening device that can collect all what has been said, put it in a node format, and actually put it in your EHR. You still have to proofread it and so and so. Actually are able to even auto summarize, sometimes flag errors and so on. So still not very reliable. This is actually in the pipeline. There are a lot of solutions that I'm seeing and testing on real-time coding, billing, and documentation assistance that are in the US but has not been officially adapted. But this is a near future implication of what you can use with this technology going forward. Now, wearable technology in healthcare has been something, the first things that we actually started to use. All these nice devices that we have on our hands now have sensors that they can actually capitalize on to do certain stuff. And this is now matured. And I remember giving this lecture 7 years ago, and I put it like in a crawling position because it was not that mature or meaningful yet because it was not integrated to other stuff. So now you actually have an AI for EKG, glucose, and sleep data from wearables that are non-invasive. Fall detection and alerts, it's already there. There are watches that actually are able to predict even like seizure, 60 or 70% accuracy before they happen by 20 minutes. So actually people who are driving can actually park on the side and so and so. So intervenes using these wearables. That was not available last year. So in this year, we actually are seeing stuff coming through the pipeline that is better validated and actually changing how we interact with the world. Now, we're going to have something that is even more helpful than that. There are devices that have been tested that actually collect these real-time variation in pulse, in blood pressure, and oxygenation, and can predict events. Still a black box for a lot of this. It's still not easy to integrate through a wearable, but these are stuff in the pipeline. You'll be able to tell a septic patient way before they actually start showing symptoms just from the variation in their vitals that precedes their presentation. And this is something that is now conceptualized but has not been delivered yet. But it's in the pipeline, and see what you can actually do with your wearable. So that's why now this is useful-less if it's in the right timing with the right accuracy for the right patient. It's still not 100% reliable for them to actually be used en masse and kind of be helpful in actually doing measure changes into clinical practice. But it's a matter of time. It was a useless thing a couple of years ago to me. Now that they actually have stuff with real-time implications, it's validated in the pipeline. Now this actually is moving forward. Now AR, VR wearables. This is another thing where there's a huge gap between leading centers and the others, but nowadays you actually have HoloLenses that are doing interactive anatomy for education. We have VR surgical simulators, also VR and others, VR distraction and pain control that is actually are using that technology to help patients deal with the pain. 3D surgical visualization with VR is being piloted by many companies where surgeons are actually wearing an AR glasses, and it actually translates the CAT scan they had prior to surgery for planning as a real-time augmented image on top of the image they are seeing in themselves. Of course, there's still some limitation in this technology, but it's already being kind of tested. So AR-assisted navigation during surgery is what I'm talking about. We're going to see very shortly an integration of this 3D imaging, the surgeon and robot to actually do surgeries that we never even thought we can do with accuracy that we never thought we can actually do for cancer removal, for other stuff. And we're going to have these biofag driven environments where we actually can react to certain changes in the resistance or pressure to say, okay, I'm about to nick an artery or do something about that. It's a matter of like getting more data, training a model, and getting it there. Uh, AR for real world mobility and safety is something that they're going to actually work on getting as a way to help patients with their physical therapy and so and so, because they actually are trying to assist their safety and tell them what they can and cannot do and push them to do a certain number of things from their daily activity. So there are like things that are in the pipeline that's going to also impact some aspects of our work. And this is fairly useful. It's still not as mature, but it's actually something that's going to be really, really useful. Now, this actually is what we are calling the clinical decision support systems. There are basically attempts to try to put different data points in one bucket and get an insight from it. And as we integrate more data, which again, the industry is trying not to because of market forces, you're going to be able to get some things that are actually going to help you predict better, treat better, identify better. And this is something that is already a part of what you do. I per se, I am a big ChatGPT user where actually I put symptoms and sometimes lab results and actually check for differentials and validate my differentials. So I'm seeing with a much broader lens, DeepMind's AlphaFold, MedPalm, Science AI. There's a lot of tools that people are now using to either search medical record, decision support making, and now we also see some of them are actually being kind of integrated. So there's a sepsis predictor model that's now part of major EHRs like Epic. There are models that actually are used as an external system for readmission prediction, and it's fairly accurate because you know what? You feel it yourself discharging this patient. You know, oh, this guy's going to be back in a month or in 2 weeks, and it happens. But it's actually now happening in a way that is measurable, objective, a bit more than your kind of hunch, and like the differential between a case and another. Triage tools like Babylon Health and Ada. So there are already stuff that are there in the practice or integrated, and there are other stuff that are still in the pipeline, like multimodal AI for unified diagnosis, where you actually can use your clinical judgment, the medical record, and a couple of LLMs to actually go and say, this is the diagnosis we are looking for. And it's going to be an integration of your the domain expertise and the insight they're going to give you from seeing so many dimensions to a point that is much more accurate than your usual differential. So that's going to be what's going to be happening in the pipeline. Imaging, also something that is now very useful, very like it's advancing, where the accuracy of the models identifying certain blurb on images to become diagnoses is really improving. And the nice thing is nowadays it's very disease specific or image specific, and this is where they're doing the best, where they have trained on millions of images to check for this parameter. So far, these are doing well. There are attempts to use more general applications. These are still struggling just because, again, the world of imaging with its complication and impurities and data inconsistencies, along with clinical implications, are very different from just saying, okay, I'm going to train you on the million X-ray, and all you're going to do is X-ray, X-ray, X-ray of the chest, and then I can have you do that, instead of saying, oh, you're going to be reading MRIs and CAT scans and so and so. It just, the model cannot handle broad tasks yet, and I don't think without prompting, any model could actually do that in our lifetime. Anyways. So radiology, there's ADOG, Zebra Medical. I know of a couple of startups of my personal friends doing that. Pathology, Path AI is a tool that's now being used. Retinopathy detection using AI is something that is already there. So real-time data interpretation is image interpretation is a matter of time, where you're going to actually have a portable chest X-ray, a portable X-ray machine, and you take an X-ray and actually said, oh, pneumothorax 20%. That's probably coming very, very soon. Cross-specialty AI tools also happen, where you actually be able to actually say, I'm going to take the Path AI data and the Zebra Medical AI data and create something that's completely different. Where from the training, now the CAT scan AI powered can not only give you that, okay, there's a blurb that here probably is an early stage lung cancer, but from the high resolution image that I was able to acquire from knowing the path, I can tell you that this is an adenocarcinoma from that CAT scan. Remember, it's just something that nowadays requires you to go get a biopsy, process the biopsy, so on. So it's probably something on the pathway as we integrate more and more data sets together. Very useful. Population health. It is something that is also useful still in the early phases where you actually are trying to say, how can I use bigger data and insights to actually help manage population health, not an individual person health. And this is something that is still getting a lot of kind of chances to be tested. So the annual flu is a testing ground for a lot of this technology. COVID-19 was a huge lab for testing this population health surveillance and appliance using crazy amount of like innovative ideas from checking real-time PCRs, looking for virus particles in sewage water, which actually was done in Boston to actually predict the number of COVID patients in a kind of indirect way because people were scared to actually go and they don't want to get off the work and so on. So you are trying to do that using like AI on looking at search data, looking at wearables variation. So there's a lot of that to actually use to actually do health surveillance. Now we are like imagining that we're going to have some outbreak modeling that's going to be more sensitive and not require us to be delayed 3 or 4 months like what happened in COVID-19 in announcing that this is a major outbreak that's going to be a pandemic happening and that hopefully going to impact how we treat that situation and do something earlier about it. So public health planning from nutrition to vaccination to so and so to resource allocation is going to be something that is soon to be powered by AI to say, oh, there's an expected increase in population from here to here. The ages are going to be moving are so and so, and so you need more COVID vaccine here, more MMR there, and work accordingly. These are things that are in the pipeline. Useful, still actually trying to crawl. And then personalized medicine, when you go to a certain individual level, it is useful when you actually are able to apply to the right case with the right diagnosis, but it's not something that is there to be a general application. We are getting much better in this as a technology because of the genomic integrated treatments. I mean, we have been playing with genomic data now for quite some time. We've parsed enough data to help us create personalized precision medicine tools so that's something that we now actually are having a lot of these researchers that tells us, oh, this genomic signal is associated with so and so, and it's a matter of time for you to go and develop a test that's going to look for that as a real-time PCR or something that's going to diagnose with much more accuracy. Now, the challenge here, and let me give you away a story that I very much like, the story of the uh, vaccine that became the Pfizer vaccine. The couple who actually developed the vaccine been working on mRNA molecules for about like 18, 20 years. But designing the molecule itself was used by AI, and it took, let's say, about 24 hours to design the molecule. The rest of the time was like going through the challenges of like getting it cleared and tested and produced and so and so. And these are now the things that are in our face between us and better cancer treatment, pushing it through the pipeline of validation, of accreditation, and safety and production. So we are having oncology decision support tools that's helping us. Okay, this patient based on these markers are going to benefit from one, two, three. We know these markers now are getting expanding from just being like lab markers to histopathology markers and integrating them and actually giving us new insights that were not there for us before. So AI is going to come and take more data from imaging, from the variation in the weight, maybe, and create some more individualized plan on dimensions that we have not seen yet that were going to be proven clinically or statistically to say these actually are impacting cancer risk, cancer response, cancer so and so from integrating big data models that we don't think that we'd have thought that, oh, you know what, actually the LDL is correlated with so and so, and there's a kind of a correlation that is so powerful that I'm going to actually be able to use LDL to predict response to so and so, or at least impact the response to cancer diagnosis. So it's useful, but not there yet to actually help us. Uh, Genomics, we are able to diagnose a lot of diseases nowadays very early on from actually understanding our genome. This is something that we actually are is useful. Still, it's hard for us because we always do it in a retrospective way. We are still unable to predict these diseases in the early phases. Like now you have the NIPT for pregnancy. You're going to be for these four diseases. You're going to be looking for mitochondrial diseases, but still does not predict many of the stuff. So it's still in infancy. But it's quite useful to know on week 9 or 10 that there's positive trisomy 21, for example, and you take an action accordingly. This is something that is really useful in helping us. Now, biosimulation in healthcare, was going to have a separate lecture that I'm going to give in this series, is quite useful. It's actually in its infancy. It's going to be facing a steep challenge as you integrate all these, but it's going to be very impactful as we actually get to it, where we actually now have in silico models that simulates a pathway or a network of pathways and actually gives you stuff that you didn't even think that could be there as you actually integrate all these data sets and all these pathways together. It opens new dimensions of stuff that you never even thought is actually going to exist. So that's why actually uh, uh, in drug discovery, we are actually also in the usefulness phase where you actually, the easiest part is to identify, well, not the easiest part, but the part that the machine has been able to do very effectively and help us is actually suggest a certain protein structure or antibody structure that you can actually use so and so. But again, it's still not very helpful as you don't have the technology to integrate to say, I'm going to also simulate for side effects for so and so, and actually estimate the cost, the heat stability, the production. There are still a lot of stuff that need to be validated in vivo after in vitro before we go to this. But it's very helpful technology for us to kind of drug delivery, drug discovery. All these are stuff that actually are going to be impacted hugely by AI as we go forward. So atom-wise is a drug discovery, toxicity prediction. There are a lot of models. And in my biomedical in silico talk, I'm gonna talk about a lot of platforms and give you a two nice combination that I really like for you to do in silico research without knowing much about AI and technology, just by your domain knowledge. Okay. So another frontier here is the AI chatbots for healthcare. As therapists, as so and so, as diagnosticians, I personally might be kind of biased, but I think these are on the useless side. Eventually, there's a component of what we do in healthcare that is the rapport and the human touch and this trust you can get that I don't think they're gonna have a same trust and validity of what you get from a human that you're shaking their hand and looking them in the eye. And it's trying to just do mass kind of responses to stuff that really needs nuance, that really needs a human touch. So I don't think this technology is going to take us further. And there are a lot of startups because it's low-hanging fruit to have a model that talks like a therapist and gives suggestions and chat with them about their life and so, or doing customer service or suggest diagnoses. I don't think this is going to be really advancing. It might give us an insight about what people are struggling with. So it's going to be a good data generator technology, but it's not going to be a technology that's going to impact healthcare significantly. So let me show you this video and now talk a little bit about the future and how AI is being impacted and what are the real challenges with AI. So this is a Tesla. This is a Tesla driving on a street, and this is the autopilot. So now I'm going to tell you the tales of terror after you see that video, and then you can synthesize what was happening in that video in a more kind of comprehensive way and know the real challenge using AI. Okay. So, and this is a real story. Back in 2015, 2016, IBM, using the DeepMind, actually developed a model in collaboration with three big universities on the West Coast in the US for histopathological detection of a certain disease. It was a skin condition. And this model was trained on like 500,000 samples, became a state-of-the-art model, very extensive, very specific. Okay. And it was like it reached a point where it's actually discovering before it happens. And when people, like when there's three gurus that actually were overseeing this model training as clinicians were in doubt, it was almost all, I was always actually on the right side in figuring it out. Okay. So it was given to a rookie, like a data scientist, to do something with it. And he wanted, okay, to say, I'm going to test this model and I'm going to put a bunch of pictures together. And among the pictures, he put like random noise pictures. So he put a picture of a Mickey Mouse kind of a stamped bed sheet, and that was flagged as a positive for cancer, the same by the same amazing model. And this is what is the biggest challenge that you actually will not be able to like make as a mistake, but the machine will make all the time. Our best quality is our like just being able to shut up and not say anything. Like, this is word in Arabic, "شو بعرفني," I don't know. Like, how would I know? You know when you don't know, in a way that the machine does not. The machine always has something to offer as an answer because that's how it's trained. It's never going to be trained for this nuance or saying, I don't know. There's a saying in Arabic that says, "من قال لا أعرف فقد أفتى." That person who said, I don't know, has already given an expert opinion in a sense. And knowing your own ignorance is the first step for enlightenment. And this is what the machines are struggling with because in their model, there's an answer that for them is statistically significant that enough to push to the pipeline to you to say, here's my answer. And a lot of time, this does not work in the right way. And it's hard for you to train on a universal model for everything. And that's why it's very important to know how this model works, how it validates its answer, and how it makes a mistake. And for them, a mistake is a statistical problem. Like, okay, it's 99.99% chance of making a mistake, but the type of mistake it can make is something that no human would do. Like, no one's going to look at this Mickey Mouse cover and say, oh, it's cancer. Like, you know from your domain knowledge that this is something completely different. But for a machine, the knowledge that it had was fooling enough for it to say it fits a cancer image, and I'm going to label it as a cancer. So this is an important part of what type of mistakes these algorithms make. And it's very important when you take these actually to keep that in mind, that these are looking at a statistical signal in a big bunch of data. And without you knowing what you're looking at, without you knowing how you're prompting this, without you knowing how to actually interpret this and have it validated, you will get answers that are completely nonsense. And of course, a lot of time you will get answers that are amazing. And that's why they are part of what we use. I use ChatGPT in my rounds almost always. Like, this is part of what I do. So we have limitations coming to this world. Data quality, good data, good insights. Bad data, bad insights. And garbage in, garbage out is a saying that we frequently say in healthcare and other stuff. And to be honest with you, the data we have on patients in healthcare are garbage. Except for the labs and the vitals, everything else is not as reliable. Like, you don't have like a way to say who out of your 100 patients in the hospital really had nausea last night. Like, it's so nasty and noisy. All these progress notes are almost meaningless from the copy and pasting. So you have dirty data. Plus, the data you have being collected in these systems are designed for billing and coding purposes and became accidentally part of what you use in your clinical health use because of the High-Tech Act in 2009 by Obama, but it's really not, was not designed around data gathering and presenting to physicians. And that's why it's really a big challenge. Inability to understand context is one important thing that only you can actually do so far. And that's why the mistakes, as I said, that it can do is nothing that you would have done or any little kid will do. Lacks of creativity because it's historical data that's getting trained on. the prediction will be only in the dimensions that they have actually thought of. And this is a very important story to keep in mind. I read this wonderful book by an orthopedic surgeon talking about their field has changed over time. 80 years ago, if you go to an orthopedic ward, almost all what they've done, or at least two-thirds of what they've done, is kind of removal of the head of the joint from TB. That is no longer any relevant to their practice in 70 to 80 years. Imagine what's going to happen now as we actually cure cancer and maybe have something to change our management or prediction or even treatment for Alzheimer's. There's going to be a new set of problems and diseases that's going to come and face us. So security limitations, that's why also like this is an equation where any data point can take it and shove it to a very extreme interpretation. So it's always can be manipulated by dirty data or low fidelity data. Keep that in mind. Cost, of course. I mean, we are fortunate to live in countries that have like good incomes, high GDP, that systems can actually afford these systems. But running these technology is very expensive. Your ChatGPT, you're paying $20, you're costing them $70 actually as a user. It's very costly, and this is you're paying. You have a lot of customers who are not paying, so it's a losing it's a money losing scheme so far because it's very energy intense. It's very hardware intense. So it's still very costly. The cost will go down with time, but for now it's very costly. Inaccurate data analysis, again, because eventually it is something that is putting those data and has less nuance from you. It actually can get inaccurate data analysis. Biases that are introduced by our documentation, by our metrics, by our prior assessments will actually continue to kind of push the algorithms towards bias. The black box nature of this technology. And we're going to have a lecture talking basically about all types of technology and this deep learning model, neural network model. It is really, you don't know what's happening between a layer and the other. You know in a sense, but you don't know how it comes to its decision because eventually this is a world of gray that this machine is telling you, well, this gray is more white or more black. And that cutoff for it is not clear to you when it's calling it that or that. And of course, ethics and emotion are a huge part of what we do in healthcare and in life, and machines do not have that. They can mimic these, but will never necessarily acquire them as far as we know. Adversarial attacks, again, I don't know if you are in a hospital that has full AHR and what happens to you when that AHR is actually malfunctioning. Hospitals actually almost shut down in the US because they grab these paper systems, they try to put them back, but you cannot process an order, no one can see it, and the lab is giving you pushback and so and so. So if that happens as a coordinated effect, it actually can affect the healthcare in a very massive way. So it actually makes us prone, in a sense, this technology kind of reliance. And again, lack of common sense reasoning, lack of experienced data scientists is another problem. I mean, we have great data scientists from all fields. Not a lot of physicians will go actually and waste their time doing this degree for 2 to 3 years to become a data scientist. And without you combining the two domains, we're going to continue getting these stupid solutions that are not really honed in on the real problem because real problems are seen by folks who actually are on the front line, who have done this for long enough for them to say, hey, I wish there was something that can fix this. Instead of someone who's actually have seen the potato cutter and potato peeler and trying to find a problem for their solution. This is one of the biggest problem. Okay, so why we don't use models? Again, one of the major things that you will see as we are throwing on content that is AI created, that's going to be more and more bad data that's going to actually drift from reality. It's going to be stuck in its own bubble. The machine will actually have its own bubble. This is how evolution has
Abdullah, we lost your voice.
show us some new correlations. It is hard for it to be as creative and innovative as we will always be. And another point to wrap the talk to the original point that I was trying to make. This is a picture of a hospital in Paris in the 1500s, and you're showing multiple patients, families on the floors, people being kind of wrapped up in coffins. And you see a physician, one physician, and a few nurses who are sisters in the church. And that was the ratio. It was a one physician thing, a few nurses, and tens to hundreds of patients. Eventually, we start making teams of healthcare providers, and this is a surgical team of four in World War One field, I think, or maybe the Civil War. So it just shows you that there's now a teamwork happening on one patient. And then nowadays, you look at the surgical trauma team coming to a patient in the emergency room. Look how many people to one patient the ratio is. And I think we are at the age of where we're going to see this ratio even expanding more as we give more value to human life and more value to expertise. And I think we are still short on a few very important medical specialties that we don't have today. I think we need a vertebrologist, someone who is like working on vertebral problems that we all have. This is one of the most common problems, and yet we don't have a specialty that deals with nothing but that. We have a surgeon who does that. We have some physical therapists, but no one who is there to help us stand better, walk better. Imagine that. We need a sepsicologist, someone who deals with sepsis and nothing else. It's one of the most common hospital problems that we deal with, and it's kind of divided by different specialties. Each one has a different understanding of what it is, but no one's actually an expert enough for them to go and lead the sepsis care in a patient. So we have multiple specialties that kind of arise from our advancement and our delegation to certain tasks that we have nowadays to kind of more automated, less capable artificial intelligence tool. So we will always have work for the foreseeable future. It's hard for the machine to replace what we actually going to create, because as we create it and build more data for it, then we set the place for it, or the necessary data for it to go and go to the next level. And black swans are like events that you will never ever calculate that's going to happen at one point. Who would have seen in 2019 we're going to finish the year with a massive outbreak that's going to change the history of the world for the next foreseeable future? 5 years, 6 years out, and we're still suffering the secondary effects, and they're going to be tertiary effects, and seeing how it moved from medical literature now to political literature, where the post-COVID history is really taking a turn that no one expected that to be the case in 2018 and before. And the machines are not equipped to be able to deal with the unknown unknowns, nor are we. So, and things change quite rapidly, more than we expect. We are on the verge of having vaccines to cancers. This is probably something we're going to see in our lifetimes. And this disease that we lost so many dear ones to are going to be preventable by vaccines. And at one point, we will have a generation that's going to laugh at how we died from breast cancer and colon cancer, because for them, they would never have seen the atrocities that it actually caused in our society, and how ravaging this disease is, and how bad and painful it is. And we forget how medicine was 80 years ago, where for an orthopedic specialty, for example, the most common surgical procedure was just chopping the heads of bones, trying to debulk for tuberculosis. This was the most common kind of orthopedic surgical intervention. Where's TB now? Well, nowhere to be seen in our societies. Still a problem in the third world countries, mostly pulmonary, and we do have great treatments. It's just a mismatch of treatment to the needy. So medicine changes rapidly. 80 years is nothing. So keep that in mind as you look at how the land field of jobs and expertise is going to change. So always remember, we are dealing with data. This is all data driven. Artificial intelligence is a way of organizing data and correlating it in a way that puts it in puts quicker answers from knowledge that has already been established, and maybe create some correlations of stuff that we have not seen the correlation of it because of how big data has become. Data is temporal, contextual, and mute. It changes with time. It has a context that might not be replicated. And it does not give you an insight. The data just gives you something, and you make the meaning of it. The insight is always yours. Keep that in mind as you try to translate uh, the data into an insight. And this is one big problem with large language models that we're going to talk about when they're trying to replicate how we do an insight, and they end up either replicating the same flaws that we have in our mindsets of the same injustices, the same kind of wrong differential towards a group or away from a group. And that's something that the data will eventually, because of it being influenced by the contextual and temporal scenarios it was collected at, is going to replicate the same issues. And nothing is as clear as it looks at the first look. Some stuff are predetermined in the data or assimilating. So keep that in mind as you are looking at whatever the data science tools throws your way. And again, as you do in medicine, you always think, what if I'm wrong? Also, always think, what if the technology is wrong? A blood test that makes no sense to you, you typically repeat. The same thing of an insight of a tool that does not make sense to you, try to validate some other way. That gives us a few minutes to get some questions. Thank you so much for everyone. Have a wonderful day, and I look forward to the next meeting with you